everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer. I am the host of Own Your Wellness. I'm excited to be here today. We've had some crazy weather here. Just talking about that with my guest today because she's in the Caribbean and they're getting ready for a storm. So if there's any issues, that's what happened. But we're safe for now and hopefully for our entire conversation because she is an amazing woman. Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro. She said I didn't have to try and say her last name, which was wonderful, but I did my best. Anyway, she's an award-winning and celebrated author, a speaker, as well as an educator. And she's got so many awards, so many different things. But one of my favorites, mine personally, is that her book, her spiritual fiction, God Came to My Garage Sale, is prominently endorsed by James Redfield. If you guys don't know who he is, he wrote the Celestine Prophecy series. Amazing, life-changing for so many people. One of the first set of books that I read when I was changing my life. Anyway, she now has a new 5-book series entitled True Deceit False Love, which addresses domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, parental alienation, and intergenerational family trauma. Woo, that's a mouthful. So without me talking about her, let's just bring her on. Welcome, Marni, to the show.
Oh, hey, Julianne. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Definitely excited to have you here. You know, it just sort of fell into place and I'm excited. You know, I haven't had a chance to read your books yet because it happened literally like 2 days ago, but I'm excited because, you know, you touch on some amazing topics and a wide variety of things. So anyway, I would love for us to start out with you sharing a bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Well, sure. Let's see. As you said, I live in the Caribbean. I moved here about 3 years ago after a lifetime in the Chicago suburbs. And when I was there, I was a high school special education teacher, retired after 35 years. 12 of those years, I was a university graduate adjunct professor. Mother of 2 kids, sort of living the American dream. As far as my wellness journey, I had wonderful health my entire life. But after I realized that I needed to leave my 27-year marriage, that is when I realized that my health had deteriorated some. And actually, as part of that, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, fibromyalgia, which I didn't know anything about. And, but prior to that, I was completely healthy, physically and emotionally. But it's amazing when you eventually leave an unhealthy situation, your health can be restored completely. Because really, I believe, our emotions, our stressors, our minds, they can really contribute to some physical ailments. And I'm happy to say I'm completely healthy, emotionally and physically. Of course, there's challenges, and we all have challenges in our lives. And my decision to leave an abusive, toxic situation really came with some repercussions that didn't get resolved immediately. Some are still ongoing, but that is part of life. But now that I'm in such a happy and peaceful place, physically and emotionally, I can handle these challenges just with love, light, and goodness.
You know, there's so many things I want to touch on in what you just shared, but the first one is, you mentioned that you didn't even notice that your health had deteriorated. And I think that that's such a wonderful point because you don't realize how heavy the backpack is until you set it down. It's like, wait a second, it doesn't start all at once. It just sort of piles on. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa.
Right. Well, you don't, and it's very easy to go along in a toxic situation, whether it's a marriage or a family situation or a job even. And little by little, whether it's through gaslighting, whether it's just through not having healthy boundaries and putting up with a lot of stressors, you can slowly, kind of lose yourself mentally and physically. And so, yeah, it creeps up on you, and it really isn't. I love how you said that. It's not until you put the backpack down that, you really realize what you've been through.
Yeah, you didn't realize all the load you were carrying until you set it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting. I had a teacher in high school that talked about that. She wanted us to know about her as a human because she was going to know us. And she used that metaphor and it stuck with me. And then I worked in the addiction arena for quite a long time. And one of the things that they make clients do, and I think is really amazing, is add bricks. And they had to carry bricks around that represent feelings so that they have a physical representation of the emotional stress, the emotional baggage that they were carrying. And I just thought that was so amazing when they were able to set it down.
Right. What a wonderful exercise. And for a teacher to have that insight that
Yeah.
this really could be a way to reach people at a tangible level. Because of course we can talk about everything until we're blue in the face, but unless we really experience it, we really don't know it.
Exactly. And we can, like you said, we can talk about it till the cows come home, but it's just not the same when it is having the experience. So something else that you said that I really want to touch on is about how there's repercussions from the decisions that you made.
Yeah.
And I love that because there's, this idea of this Pollyanna thinking that if I just make this good choice, then everything's going to fall into place. Life doesn't usually work like that, but because you've changed, the situation is easier to handle.
Right. And you bring up a really good point. There are repercussions to any decision you make anyway. But
Mm-hmm.
when you realize you're in an unhealthy, in my case, marriage, after 27 years, it turns out I was dealing more with a predator and I was the prey, and they don't want to let you go easily. In fact, I was threatened not to leave. And, don't you dare leave, or I will, take your house, your money, and your children. And he did just that, so when my light bulb went on, and it was very clear to me that I had ignored red flags for 27 years and then
Mm-hmm.
some. But when my light bulb of reality finally came on, and I knew that the best thing for me and for my adult children was to get out of this situation, that's
Mm-hmm.
actually when the malevolence actually ramped up, because certain people have a false mask that they wear.
Mm-hmm.
They portray a certain image in a public arena, even though behind closed doors, it's very different. And they want to keep up that false narrative and that image. And, by you having a light bulb moment and realizing, hey, this isn't really for me, this isn't healthy, that goes against the narrative and the plan that they have, set in calculated, that they had hoped for. And, so you're upsetting that. So really there are repercussions, many that I was not aware of. So I think having these conversations and knowing that there are resources out there, because in so many ways, these men and women, it's not a gender specific thing, but that can
Mm-hmm.
be, controlling and manipulative in a relationship. They kind of follow the same playbook. So there are a lot of common scenarios, and boy, if I had known some of those beforehand, my escape could have been, a little bit more comfortable than it was. But I just followed my gut feeling, and that's what I did. I left.
Well, I'm glad that you did because everyone deserves to have a life that they want instead of one that they're stuck with. And, like you said, you were in this situation for over 27 years. So it's not like, even if I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that even if you're ready, 100% ready to leave, there would still be anxiety because of the unknown. And because you really don't know what's around the corner, especially in a volatile situation. So, I
Right.
mean,
And at the same time, in these situations, you have been gaslit for years. so that your self-worth, your perception of your abilities is very different than reality.
Hmm.
So little by little, they calculate and they kind of plan to, separate you, isolate you from other people, and start a smear campaign years and years before you realize what you're dealing with, so that when you really need a support system to navigate some of these changes that you need to make, you really are kind of on your own for that. And that was really a hard reality. Um, you know, but you can't control what other people do. You can only control yourself and how you respond. And it's great if you are equipped some, but not all of us are. And even after that many years, I still was questioning in that, did I really see what I saw, or did I hear? Even though
Hmm.
know of wrongdoings, unethical behavior, and all of that, it's kind of like the honest, good, empathetic people project that goodness on to others, and we kind of think everyone is following by those same rules when they're not. They're
Yeah.
not necessarily. And so we kind of have been trained to silence ourselves, and then just to kind of think it'll get better. And then, of course, with intermittent reinforcement throughout all those many years, because I've had so many people say to me, how did you stay for that long, almost 3 decades? Well, it's very easy to, when you get busy in your life, you're
Yeah.
raising a family, um, you're pursuing education, or a job or other interests, and you kind of let a lot of things slide, for the greater good. You kind of think, well, they didn't mean to say that, or that maybe that was something that I misunderstood. And but
Hmm.
after a time, there does get to be a time when there's the straw that breaks the camel's back, and it's just enough is enough. And in my case, I was actually very terrified because of the threats, and I just wanted to get away as fast
Hmm.
as I could. And I had no idea that I would lose my home, I would lose all my money, I'd lose my support system of friends, family, and neighbors. And the most devastating is I lost my two adult children to parental alienation. So, I try to look at it in a positive way, in that, I finally had to research and learn what is parental alienation, and what are the dynamics of that. And that actually helped me, be able to put one foot in front of the others, because any loving parent who loses a relationship with their children that they've raised, like one of my children, I raised into their 20s, and the other one I was close with until their 30s.
Hmm.
Parental alienation and the brainwashing and the malevolence, the false narratives, the lies, whatever it is that they do to align the kids with them, to just destroy the other parent, is it's just hard to even comprehend. But I'm trying to rise above that with all these losses. I will say I still am the loving, happy, hopeful person that I've always been. And I just believe in goodness and truth. But I also believe we all have our own journey, and we're all at different levels of our awakening or our evolving.
Now that's beautifully said. And, something that well, two things. First of all, really quick before I ask my real question is, I was thinking about the idea of, being in a situation that's toxic and unhealthy. And while I've never had the situation that you're in, I've had, situations work, for example, that, it would get so bad that I was like, I'm going to leave. And then all of a sudden I'd have a good day. And it would be like, maybe it's not so bad.
That's the intermittent reinforcement.
Yes,
And then,
exactly.
you end up with, and I know I'm throwing a bunch of terms out here, but I'll tell you, the terms have really helped me understand. But
Mhm.
cognitive dissonance, where you're just kind of you're questioning. It's like, okay, should
Yeah.
I go? Should I stay? You
Yeah.
know, is it really that bad? Yes, it's really that bad. But then, like you said, you had a good day at work, and it kind of softens things up again, and you
Mhm.
think, well, maybe I can hang in there just a little bit longer.
Exactly. And it's funny what you'll put up with, because there shouldn't be a situation in your life, well, maybe I can hang in there a little bit
Right,
longer. It
right.
doesn't,
Yeah. What's wrong with that picture? But
exactly. But when you're in it, it seems completely normal.
right,
So,
right. And you're groomed. You're groomed from day
mhm.
one to kind of accept the unacceptable. And
Yeah.
some people, especially if they have intentions to harm, control, if they're leading a double, triple life or whatever the deal is, you know, um, they really kind of target you. They
Mhm.
look for people that might, look the other way or give you another chance or really let things slide because you're loving and empathetic and you kind of think you're both in this together when really that
Exactly.
was kind of a false reality. I have to take ownership though that I allowed that even though I was what I believe in full blown domestic violence,
Mhm.
intimate partner, trauma, I have to take responsibility that I, at one point in my life, wasn't strong enough to stand up and say, no, this isn't right, or we need
Mhm.
to work on this together, or, you got some explaining to do, or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like I put up with a lot. And then also it's very important for people that find themselves in these situations to do the inner work and go back to their
Mhm.
own family origin and those dynamics with their own parents or siblings and just try to figure out, why don't I have strong boundaries? Why am I
Mhm.
an overgiver, an extreme empath? Why do bad things happen to good people? And you need to kind of figure out your role in that and make some necessary changes when you need to.
I think that that's really beautiful the way that you say that too, because taking ownership gives your power back to you. It doesn't mean that what was done to you is acceptable. There's a difference.
Yes.
Uh, but owning your part in things and seeing that, then that means that you can make other choices.
Right, right. Even though, like, for example, with parental alienation, the researchers, really say that it is one person. So it's either one dad or one mom, it doesn't matter who it is, but that is causing the harm to so
Mhm.
many family members and using their children as weapons. And
Yeah.
and really, it's almost like they hate their ex more than they love their children. And
Mm.
and it's such an unfortunate dynamic that actually is being played out with millions and millions of people. So many families are disrupted. But then again, like, we all have our own journey. I mean, it took me into midlife to address some of my own childhood wounds and situations and make some decisions about who I keep in my life, who I let in my life.
I love that. So my question for you is, have you always been a writer, or is this one of the one of the things that you picked up to cope, or is it just a love? What got you to start writing?
That's really a good question. I think, well, I started to write when I was, 2 years old, right? You learn
Oh.
how to write a letter, ABCs. And then, of course, through school, your elementary, junior high, high school, you're always writing. I went on to
Mhm.
college. Um, I went on and had to write a thesis for a master's degree. In 1997, I earned my doctorate degree. So I had a big paper to write called a dissertation. So I've always been able to write, and actually I come from a family of writers and educators. My mom was an amazing writer, not only with poetry and essays, but she taught English even at the college level. And before she passed away, she had decades as a newspaper reporter. So she would always be able to, she just had a way with words. She really did have a way with words. And I think that that influenced me as well. But, it really wasn't until I had something to say that
Mhm.
the writer in me was born, and I had this garage sale when I lost everything. The home was in foreclosure. I had to to unload the material possessions of my hopes and dreams and that type of thing. But instead of being negative and sad or angry and revengeful, all emotions that really would be justified, I was
Mm-hmm.
filled with love. I was filled with love and peace and happiness. And I was grateful. I looked at the glass half full that, okay, I'm making a life change. I've lost everything, but you know what? I still have my integrity, and I
Mm-hmm.
still have, and I have hope that I will just regain, my happiness and my peace. So I had this garage sale, and at this garage sale, miracles happened. I was surrounded by dragonflies, like 50 to 100 of them at one point.
Wow.
I had experiences that were all in slow motion, some that couldn't be explained like using my regular language. It was like otherworldly. And luckily, many of the experiences I had other witnesses with me to say, yeah, you really did see that. That was not your imagination. But the experiences prompted me to, and the feeling I got was all positive. It was just filled
Mm-hmm.
with love and supported and that type of thing. And it prompted me to research spiritually transformative encounters, STEs, which also led to researching near death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more research on that. And, it really validated that I really experienced some trauma induced miracles. And that's really when people kind of have an awakening of sorts, when things are really in a low point in their life, and
Mm-hmm.
do some reflection or research or whatever, and they can be shown that really there are positive things, and maybe that there's bigger things at work in the universe. So I ended up writing my spiritual fiction, God Came to My Garage Sale. And you mentioned it's endorsed by James Redfield, who wrote the Celestine Prophecy, which was such
Mm-hmm.
an honor that he saw value in what I was doing, because he also is known for his spiritual fictions. But
Mm-hmm.
all spiritual fictions, all fiction actually is grounded in reality. These experiences I had really did happen. It's set in Indiana, but really my experiences are Illinois, where I grew up and where I spent most of my life. But this book has resonated with so many people that actually it's there. I'm in talks with a number of different people for it to be a movie.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, so if you see God Came to My Garage Sale, um, either in an independent film, we'll see what happens. And I'm actually trying to manifest it as well, because I think that the messages of just love and light and
Mm-hmm.
goodness, is it's something that we all could use right now. So, and I've just been thrilled that it's won a lot of awards. Actually, just 2 weeks ago, I just placed in the Hollywood Book Festival as a
Oh, wow.
runner-up in the spiritual category. So that was extremely cool. And I'm not so much needing the external validation of the awards, but
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it's the message is resonating with a lot of people is very cool.
It's resonating. Yes, people are accepting. Yes, it's being out there so other people
Yeah,
can have that experience as well through you, which is the whole point of sharing. So,
definitely.
yeah, I'm excited for you. So I popped up your website a couple of times. So people can actually get your books through here as well. Also on Amazon, I know that, but since this is on TV, it's hard to click on that. So I wanted to make sure that we pop this up. And then you have just like what you're up to. What else is on your website?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can read about me and my background. You can read about, which I think is a really great section in my website, called Praise. You could read about the people that have endorsed not only the spiritual fiction, but my 5-book series, True, Deceit, False Love, because actually, so many of the people that endorsed, that book series were mentors and people that I looked up to, that I actually kind of got to know virtually. And then at some point, on a personal level, because they wanted to endorse what I was doing. They were like, Marni, your 5-book series is like nothing I've ever seen before, with poetry, a survivor's workbook, a resource book, even a word search puzzle book. It's just a different creative approach to deal with some really tough stuff. And sometimes we need to lighten it up a little bit and find the joy in uncovering the truth and understanding what we've been through. So on
Exactly.
my website, that would be something. But then I also have a happening section where I post my podcast interviews, my book signings. I just today was asked to speak at Columbia University in New York City. So
Fun.
now Caribbean Girl will be flying, to New York City this fall to speak at Columbia. And most likely I just found out today, so I'm not exactly sure of the topic, but I really would like to kind of promote the idea that there are signs and synchronicities. And if we follow our gut feeling, and if we look through things with a lens of positivity and love and compassion, we really can make a difference in the world. And so I think that will be the gist of my talk. But on my website, the happening section can fill people in on what I'm up to.
I love that. It's amazing. And I'm excited for you because,
Thanks.
it's such an important topic. And, so many people are like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have, or, oh, yeah, we all have these instincts, but most of us don't realize that we can strengthen them.
We have the power within us
Exactly.
to make changes to our emotional state as well as our physical state,
Exactly.
and they really are in so many ways intertwined. And actually, spirituality, and your belief systems can also be, intertwined with all of that as well.
100%. And on that note, it is time for us to go to commercial. So we're going to be back in just a moment. Thank you so much, Marni. For those of you who are watching us live, thank you for being here. But it is time for those commercials. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back, everyone. Real quick, if you just saw that last commercial about E360 TV, the guy on the ball, he's standing on it. I had a personal trainer that is 6'4" and could stand straight up on one of those balls. I have no idea how he did it. I could barely get up on my knees. Anyway, let's bring our guest back on. Marni, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here today, especially with the weather.
Yeah, actually, it's holding, so it's all good. So it's great.
I love that. So, something that I was thinking about during the commercials that I'm really excited to maybe touch on is these spiritual experiences that, like how you saw the dragonflies, things like that. So many people will have a sign or some sort of small miracle, and it's almost like they're saying, yeah, I'm going to wait for a more signy sign or
Well, I'm like that too. I have to say that I'm like that too. I actually don't have a foundation in religion or spirituality. So my exposure to just blind faith was just not
Mhm.
there. And, little by little, in my adulthood, I kind of found religion and then kind of backed away from that more towards spirituality.
Mhm.
And I'm the kind of person that needs proof. I want to know, okay, I give me one more sign and make it stronger. It's like you're almost, arguing with the universe to give you that proof. And I really feel that I got that proof over and over and over through the many experiences I had. That I also, like I said, I did a lot of research into other spiritual experiences. People had had thousands of people that have had near death experiences that come back and kind of relate that it's all about love, and
Mhm.
it's all about a journey, and we might have even signed up for some of the trials and tribulations we had, so but I know what you mean, like, I want that proof, or we might just chalk it up and say, boy, that was a coincidence,
Mhm.
that was just really by chance that that happened. But when you have something that happens over and over and over, um, and you can even manifest some
Mhm.
things, then you really at some point need to accept that no, you are being given a gift. You just needed to finally be ready to pay attention to that gift.
I think that that's a beautiful thing and a beautiful way to say it. And it makes me think too about how a lot of people don't really understand their own worth. And if they could see themselves instead of from that inner critic voice, but maybe from somebody who loves them and see like the most amazing person that, they see in you, then it would be kind of cool to live your life from a place of worth.
Right. Well, you probably wouldn't put up with being treated poorly. And,
Exactly.
right. And you might have, uh, pushed yourself harder for things
Mhm.
if you felt that you were worthy or that you were capable. And you know, I can give you an example of when I finally came into my own to do that. I mean, just in reaching out to someone as well known as James Redfield for an endorsement for my little spiritual fiction was a big feat, and you know, in some ways I was thinking, who am I to be able to ask someone who is so very successful to even give of their time or just pay attention? And actually, the first response from him was like, oh, I don't endorse other people. And I really have my own Celestine vision thing going on.
Mhm.
But I almost at that point had a gut feeling that I just didn't want to completely take no for an answer. And I pushed beyond my comfort zone. And I said, well, listen, James, I totally respect that. But here is my manuscript. And if you just happen to have a little time and want to glance at it, I would really appreciate it. And really, that my stepping outside of my comfort zone and kind of knowing my worth and knowing the value of what my book was about really paid off, because a couple months later, he contacted me and said, I love your book and I love your message and I want to endorse you. And he did.
I
And
love that.
I took that same mindset with my 5-book series. So, like, here I was trying to figure out what I was going through. I didn't know that much about domestic violence or
Mhm.
parental alienation or any of these terms, word salad, gaslighting, scapegoat. I didn't know any of this stuff. So I would research it. And, I looked up to some major influencers in the abuse recovery community. Dr. Sam Vaknin, Dr. Jennifer Harmon, Lisa Romano, the breakthrough life coach, Ashley Burgess, Tamara Sweeney, Tracy Malone. I could just, the list goes on because I have a large group of supporters, but they were people that I looked up to learn about what I was going through. And then at some point, I reached out to them because I just felt like, okay, I am worthy. I have something to share here, to contribute to what's already out there. And, sure, there were a few people I reached out to that, I didn't hear back from, but I was just so honored with the people that did reach back out and wanted to support what I was doing. And I think that it's an earlier stage in my life, especially while I was in that marriage. I may not have had that inner strength to shoot for the best.
And well, I'm glad that you did, because it just shows anybody who's watching what is possible. Even just following your instincts. How many times, I mean, it probably in the grand scheme of things would have been more, I hate to use the term easy because it's not easy, but more expected for you to stay in that relationship and stay in what you knew than to break free from something that you've been a part of for 27 plus years.
Yeah.
I mean, that takes so much courage to do. So much.
And especially with what we talked about with the gaslighting and, how they kind of position you to where you really question your worth and your abilities and your perception of things. Yes, it did take a lot of courage. And, I also needed to acknowledge that I was a victim of an abuser.
Yeah.
And I think, that doesn't mean you stay in victimhood. In fact, I'm, probably one of the ones that got out of victimhood, faster than others, because I'm not one to sit on the pity pot. I'm not one to, live in, that kind of energy. I wanted to live life. And even with all the losses that I have had, and, with my 2 children not being in my life, that is the biggest loss. I still, just have happiness and light and love and goodness within me. And I'm making a beautiful life for myself. And just, can only put it out there to the universe, the truth, to bring awareness, whatever. But at some point, you need to step back and say, you've done the best that you possibly can. And at some point, maybe there needs to be some divine intervention.
I just keep thinking too about, your kids in particular. And of course, I don't know you personally, but I kind of feel mama bear. I want to, step in and shake some heads and all that, and say, listen. But I also understand too, like if you were stuck in that abusive relationship,
right.
They're in their own abusive relationship as well. It looks different for them than it did for you. And to understand that, it's like, okay, breathe. Hopefully they'll get to their own understanding and be able to make their own opinions based in a different, frame of mind than they are now. But
right.
I love that you didn't let it stop you.
Right. It took me 27 years for my light bulb to go on. So I'm sure for children, even if they are adult children, it's going to be a process for them. Plus they've been fed such a false narrative for how long, who knows even what has been said, whatever it is, it's pretty major. But at the same time, my research has, given me the understanding that there is something called a Stockholm Syndrome, where there are innocent people that align with, controlling, manipulative people, and they'll buy into a false narrative. They'll be brainwashed. That's why we have cults. We have cults in our world because there are people, just very intelligent people, that can get swept up in a false narrative and
Mhm.
make decisions based on that. And then there's flying monkeys, there's other players in this. There, it's not just the one perpetrator, the one alienator. It, they actually engage family members and neighbors and
Mhm.
friends in this whole campaign of denigration. So it's really like an army against one. And, you know, at some point, I sincerely believe truth prevails. So,
Mhm.
justice doesn't always. And, I may not see the happy ending that I would dream of. Um, Not just for myself, but for my own children's well-being. They've
Mhm.
lost half of themselves. And,
Yeah.
it's that's not a normal thing. It's not a natural progression. It's the empathetic, loving people that would never teach a child to hate the other parent, no matter what they've been through, you know?
Exactly.
Right. And so, it is a journey on their part. And at some point, the loving parents just have to just, pray and if they've already done whatever they can to try to reach out and it's not happening, then at some point, you know maybe divine intervention will happen, and maybe not.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because so many lives don't have to be unhappy. We should live in peace and harmony.
I think too about because I've lost a lot of people that were really young when they passed away, and my brother was one of them. He passed away when he just turned 45, so
Okay.
super young. But anyway, the point though that I keep on thinking about is he had this story about his wife, which was supposedly his ex-wife when he passed away. And as soon as he died, I found out so much about him, and I was like, that wasn't true.
Right.
And I had to apologize to his ex-wife, which actually was still technically his wife, because
Right.
I believed what he had told me. And to find out after the fact that no, that really wasn't how it was, I definitely had to give her an apology because she deserved it. But she never tried to defend herself. She never, that's the thing. It's like she knew she was right and that was okay. She
And
just,
that's kind of where I'm at too. I'm not a big one in having to defend myself. I didn't
Mhm.
go to these neighbors and friends and family members and say, "Wait a minute, this is the truth." That's not.
Yeah.
I don't know what was said. I knew that that is not really how I wanted to conduct myself. That if they really cared, they would come and ask me and say,
Hmm.
"Can I hear what your side is?"
Hmm.
Because I've heard some other side, but people don't necessarily want to get involved, and sometimes even their silence contributes to
Yeah.
the alienation and to the abuse. But yeah, you find out afterwards, and I'm sure the guilt that you felt was terrible, but at the same time, you've got to cut yourself some slack because you were supporting your brother at the time, and that was his
Hmm.
narrative. And he might have even fully believed his narrative. uh,
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but then you can look back and say, well, why was there a narrative? What was he trying to portray? Well, it's a false image.
Hmm.
He's trying to align people with him and against someone else. And sometimes people do that by putting down other people or making up lies or believable half truths.
Yeah, that's a good one. The believable half truths are usually the ones that I fall for,
Yeah.
especially somebody that I love. So I definitely understand, but and I've been the person that has been lied about as well. So, and I've never defended myself because I knew the truth of what the situation was. And me trying to defend myself wouldn't help anyway, because they already believe what they believe. So,
Right. So it's better to put your energies into just, owning your own,
yeah.
finding your passions, making yourself the healthiest that you can be.
Hmm.
Pay attention to your own well-being, and you can't be responsible for changing the narrative for other people. The truth really does eventually come out.
It does. It definitely does. So what would you say was an unexpected, wonderful, beautiful thing that happened to you? And I just want you to pick one. After you decided to leave this marriage, what's something that you just had no idea, but just was so beautiful?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't set out to be in another relationship. In fact, it would be very natural not to trust again,
Mm-hmm.
not to get involved again. But I became very close with a good friend of mine, and I met him at a tennis class, and actually got to know him and his girlfriend at the time. And the three of us really just formed a real nice bond, a supportive friendship with each other. She eventually got very sick and passed away. And that was just devastating to both of us. But
Mm-hmm.
I was there for her and for him, for them. And they were there for me when I knew I needed to escape my marriage. And
Mm-hmm.
so the friendship with Rick just blossomed, and we ended up just traveling a lot together, seeing the world, just laughing and having fun. He really introduced me in many ways to spirituality. He had already been attending the IONS conferences and meetings. That's the International Association for Near Death Studies, and brought me along. And we had some of these very deep conversations. And, I was just amazed to spend my time with someone that was honest, because
Mm-hmm.
that is the virtue, that is the quality that means so much to me right now. And that was something that I was not experiencing in my marriage, was honesty. There was true deceit. The love was false, but there was true deceit. So here I'm spending my days with just what turned out to be my closest friend. And then it evolved into something more, and that was unexpected. And now he is my life partner, and we live in the Caribbean together. And our days are amazing. And you know even though he never had children, he certainly understands. He's met both of my children.
Mm-hmm.
He actually met my ex-husband. He kind of knows all the players, even in the family. I know all of his players. We really just have a very loving and supportive relationship. It's I never thought I would ever have that. And that was the best surprise I could ever have.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm so happy for you.
I'm happy for me.
Yeah, it happens in the most odd places sometimes. Yeah, you just, like you said, not expecting it. So,
Not at all. And actually, when we talk about how we ended up together in a tennis class, there were so many different variables that
mhm.
had to take place before even that first meeting, that seemed to be orchestrated in a divine way. So, it's just been an amazing journey. And his late girlfriend is actually still part of us here. She
Mm.
was a watercolor artist and from Central Illinois, yet all of her paintings were Caribbean based. They were all Caribbean things. So we have her spirit surrounding us,
Mhm.
and really realized that maybe there was um, a purpose for all of this. Maybe it was all meant to be, because you know um, we're all in a very happy place.
I love that. I just think it's beautifully said. And, death isn't final. It's just a transition. So, I mean, it's hard when you can't physically see somebody any longer and have those conversations. But, people are still around. I know that I have my own personal experiences with loved ones that have passed away that I mean, the only time I ever feel crazy is when somebody else experiences it with me.
Right, right,
Then there's no denying it.
right. No, I've really shifted my belief system to believe that that we do transition, but
Mhm.
our physical death doesn't really mean that we are gone completely.
Yeah.
That there are other planes of existence, and I really have been shown that in many regards. So, I think God really did come to my garage sale.
I love that. Is that how you came up with the title, was because of that experience?
Oh yeah, like I kept on thinking as one thing after another, and then there were a number of things afterwards that I tied into the story.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also kind of thought about experiences I had um, prior to this that
Mm-hmm.
really I never really gave too much thought to.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I really was questioning, did God come to my garage sale? And I really believed that God was there.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, we are almost out of time. Is there anything that you'd love to leave with the audience?
With your show being about owning your wellness, just know that emotional stress and toxic relationships or situations can really wreak havoc on your physical well-being as well.
Mhm.
So, whatever you can do, we all have our challenges. Your challenge might be very different than some of the challenges that I talked about. Whatever your challenge is, realize that you have the power to control your own thoughts. And your thoughts can control your actions, and your actions can control your destiny. So you can really change your circumstance with a little bit of hope, a little bit of research, a little bit of inner reflection, and just taking some action steps to make a change in your life. You can achieve wellness emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
And you need all three. So I love that so much. So for everybody who's watching, this is Marni's website one more time. So this is where you can find her books. You can find her speaking engagements and all about her. Marni, I just want to say thank you so much for making it onto the show and spending your time, your energy, and your love with us, because I know I appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else does as well.
Well, Julianne, it's just been an honor, and it's amazing what you are doing with your community, and just the hope and inspiration and the tools that you're giving to your audience. So thank you, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Thank you, and stay safe.
Yeah.
Bye for now. And that is all the time we have for the show today. On Monday, we have Annette Castillo coming on, and we're going to be talking about how to speak to your kids about sex, puberty, social media, bullying, all the stuff that are hard topics. So stay tuned for that, and we will enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will see you again next week.